Today we embark on a rigorous examination of one of the most foundational, complex, and contested elements of Canadian history, the treaties between the Crown and later the Dominion of Canada and Indigenous nations. We will use the provided map of native treaty territories as our primary visual aid, situating it within broader imperial, colonial, and indigenous historical contexts. This is not a simple story of land transactions but one of diplomacy, alliance building, misunderstanding, power imbalances, and ongoing legal and moral obligations. Conceptual and historiographical framework. Treaties in the Canadian context are constitutionally protected agreements under Section 35 of the Constitution Act, 1982. They are not mere contracts in the common law sense but, from Indigenous perspectives, often sacred covenants establishing nation-to-nation relationships. The Crown viewed many, especially post-1763, as mechanisms to extinguish or cede Aboriginal title in exchange for defined benefits. Indigenous signatories frequently understood them as sharing arrangements that preserved inherent rights, hunting, fishing privileges, and political autonomy. Historians emphasize differing worldviews on land. European concepts of fee simple ownership and sovereignty contrasted sharply with indigenous relational, stewardship-based systems. The Royal Proclamation of 1763 is pivotal. It recognized indigenous title, reserved treaty-making to the Crown, and set the legal framework for later agreements. Canada officially recognizes approximately 70 historic treaties, 1701–1923, covering nearly 50% of the land mass and involving 364 of 617 First Nations. 2. Major eras and treaty types reflected on the map. 1. Early treaties, peace, friendship, and alliance, 1701–1760s. These predate large-scale settlement. Treaties of peace and neutrality, e.g., with the Haudenosaunee, Iroquois, and peace and friendship treaties, primarily in the Maritimes with Mi'kmaq and Maliseet, 1725–1779, focused on alliances against common enemies, especially the French, trade, and non-aggression. Critically, many did not involve land cession. They emphasized mutual respect and continued indigenous use of territories. On the map, these appear in the Atlantic region. 2. Upper Canada land surrenders and pre-Confederation treaties, 1764–1860s. Following the influx of Loyalists after the American Revolution, treaties in what is now southern Ontario involved piecemeal land acquisitions. These set precedents for annuity payments and reserves. 3. Robinson Treaties, 1850, a pivotal transition. Negotiated by William Benjamin Robinson with Anishinaabe, Ojibwa, nations around Lakes Huron and Superior. These were responses to mining pressures. In exchange for ceding vast territories, signatories received reserves, annuities, and hunting, fishing rights on unoccupied Crown lands. They served as the template for the numbered treaties. On the map, these are distinct zones in northern Ontario. 4. Douglas Treaties, 1850–1854. On Vancouver Island, Governor James Douglas, Hudson's Bay Company, negotiated 14 treaties with coast sailor nations. These were smaller, focused on enabling colonial settlement. Terms were limited. Many BC nations view much of the province as unceded. The map shows these as localized areas on Vancouver Island. 5. The numbered treaties, 1871–1921, the core of the map's prairie and northern coverage. These 11 treaties, Treaties 1 to 11, were driven by the Dominion of Canada's westward expansion after Confederation, 1867, the purchase of Rupert's Land, 1869–70, railway construction, Canadian Pacific Railway, and settler agriculture. Commissioners like Alexander Morris represented the Crown. Key examples with approximate dates and areas cross-reference the map's color, coded zones and margins. Treaty 1 and 2, 1871, Southern Manitoba, Swampy Cree, Saulteaux, Ojibwa. Reserves, annuities, agricultural aid. Treaty 3, 1873, Lake of the Woods region, Ontario, Manitoba, significant for the Dawson route. Treaty 4, 1874, Southern Saskatchewan. Treaty 5, 1875, with adhesions, Northern Manitoba, Ontario. Treaty 6, 1876, Central Saskatchewan, Alberta, Cree, notable for medicine chest, clause and famine relief promises. Treaty 7, 1877, Southern Alberta, Blackfoot Confederacy. Treaty 8, 1899, Northern Alberta, BC, NWT, included adhesions, responded to Klondike Gold Rush. Treaty 9, 1905, Northern Ontario, James Bay. Treaty 10, 1906, Northern Saskatchewan. Treaty 11, 1921, Mackenzie River District, NWT, last major numbered treaty, tied to oil discoveries. Common provisions, Crown's written version, surrender of Aboriginal title to vast areas, creation of reserves, often 160 acres per family of 5, perpetual annuities, $3–5 per person, hunting, fishing rights on unoccupied Crown land, schools, farm implements, and one-time gifts. William's Treaties, 1923, and later adhesions extended some Ontario coverage. 3. Who established these treaties? For the natives. The treaties were negotiated by the British Crown pre-1867, and then the Government of Canada post-Confederation with Indigenous leaders, chiefs and councils. Indigenous nations were active agents, selecting negotiators, debating terms, and often securing better oral understandings or adhesions. However, power imbalances grew, disease, loss of bison economy, prairies, military pressure, and assimilation policies, e.g., Indian Act, weakened negotiating positions. Many promises, e.g., adequate reserves, agricultural support, healthcare, were poorly fulfilled or interpreted narrowly by the Crown. From the indigenous perspective, leaders like those in Treaty 6 sought protections amid crisis. Treaties were often understood as covenants of mutual benefit and protection, not blanket extinguishment. IV. Interpretations, breaches, and legacies. Crown government view. Treaties extinguish title, enabling lawful settlement and resource development. Indigenous view. Relationships of ongoing alliance, oral promises and spirit, intent carry equal or greater weight than written text. Many argue, sharing, rather than surrender. Judicial evolution. Supreme Court cases, Marshall, Badger, Restall, affirm generous, purposive interpretation favoring indigenous understandings, especially for historic treaties. Unfulfilled obligations led to modern claims, specific claims processes, and the shift to modern treaties post-1975, e.g., James Bay and Northern Quebec Agreement 1975, NISGAR 2000. These are more detailed, include self-government, and cover areas like much of BC, Yukon, and Nunavut, unceded or new frameworks. V. Contemporary significance. The map illustrates why treaty rights remain central to Canadian law, politics, and reconciliation. They underpin resource development, e.g., pipelines, mining, hunting, fishing rights cases, and land governance. The United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples (UNDRIP) and ongoing inquiries further contextualize implementation gaps.